The story of The Wolf Among Us is often seen as fully understood. It's been over a decade and countless essays, mine included, have dissected its every layer. Or so we thought, because one major plot point, while widely known, has been almost entirely forgotten. A dark, twisted, and frankly disturbing element of the story. I'm talking, of course, about the ribbons. Most players remember what they do, but there's so much more lurking beneath the surface. From the victims they control to harrowing themes of human trafficking, whistleblowing, and the violation of bodily autonomy. This is the darker, overlooked story The Wolf Among Us was trying to tell, while keeping its lips sealed. We of course must first begin with the girls, who they are and how the story uses them to paint a narrative. I'll go over each ribboned girl briefly and then connect the dots. Vivian. Vivian was the original girl with the ribbon, the source of the silencing magic. Her tragic story begins with a rocky marriage, one that ended in divorce after her husband attempted to remove her ribbon. As we know, doing so results in instant decapitation. Later in life, Vivian crossed paths with the sleazy Georgie Porgy and helped establish the Pudding and Pie, an adult club that proudly promised discretion is our guarantee. But to truly guarantee silence, a darker solution was needed. It's implied that Georgie, or perhaps the Crooked Man himself, found a way to replicate Vivian's ribbon, effectively enslaving every girl funneled into the club. With their voices bound by magic, the women couldn't go to the police, couldn't cry for help, couldn't tell a soul what was happening to them. They were reduced to silent, disposable commodities. Vivian lived with the guilt of this for years. She never wanted to be a part of it, but her love for Georgie stopped her from breaking the curse, and the only way to do that would be to end her own life. Faith, also known as Donkey Skin from the fable or All Kinds of Fur. Her story is already a grim one. She fled her kingdom to escape an abusive father who intended to marry her. Eventually she found Prince Lawrence, but their fairy tale ending never came. In Fabletown, the two fell into poverty, and with nowhere left to turn, still carrying the weight of her trauma, Faith sought help from the Crooked Man. That path led her to the Pudding and Pie. There she was trapped, enslaved under the silencing spell, scraping by, unable to seek help from anyone. The first time we see her, it's after an altercation with the woodsman. Not long after, she's found decapitated and officially marked as deceased. Lily. Lily is the second victim in the Fabletown murders, the sister of Holly, who runs the Trip Trap bar. Hers is arguably one of the most tragic stories in the game. Like so many others, Lily hit rock bottom. With no one to turn to, she followed the same path, seeking help from the Crooked Man and ending up under Georgie's control at the Pudding and Pie. Her choices, born out of desperation, caused a rift between her and her loved ones. Holly and their friends disapproved of her work and ultimately cut her off. Isolated and becoming increasingly reliant on illicit substances, Lily disappeared into the margins of Fabletown. When she went missing, no one seemed to care, except Holly. It wasn't until Lily's severed, glamoured head appeared on the government's doorstep, disguised as Snow White, that people finally started paying attention. We never see Lily alive in the game, and that's intentional. She stands as a symbol of Fabletown's indifference, its quiet, systemic neglect of the working class, Fables left to fend for themselves. Nerissa, better known as the Little Mermaid, is the final ribbon girl. Her backstory is partially known. She gave up her voice for a man she believed to be the love of her life, only to be left heartbroken and abandoned. Alone and desperate, she found herself working at the Pudding and Pie, trapped like the other girls under the ribbon's curse. But unlike the rest, Nerissa found a way to fight back. Carefully skirting the limits of the spell, she became Bigby's key informant, the true whistleblower whistleblower in the case. And yet, by the end of the game, even her identity comes into question. Because if we follow the game's final twist,
you're not as bad as everyone says you are.
She may not be Nerissa at all, and if that's true, then the story takes on a whole new meaning, because it means Faith lived and used her voice in disguise to finally take down the Crooked Man, tying it together. If you haven't noticed yet, all of the women we've discussed share striking similarities. Most have endured failed relationships marked by abuse, abandonment, or both, left to fend for themselves while carrying deep trauma. With no real support systems around them, some fell prey to those who exploited them. Others were silenced permanently. These 4 women weren't chosen for the story by accident. I believe The Wolf Among Us is trying to show us something deeper. When institutions fail and people are left isolated, predators rise. The most vulnerable in our society, the poor, the abused, the voiceless, become the easiest targets. Their autonomy is stripped away, and they fall into cycles of exploitation, trafficking, and torture while the world looks the other way. With no power left, their only form of rebellion is to whistleblow, whether by dragging the truth to the authorities in the form of corpses, or choosing to end their suffering on their own terms. So yes, the specific women tell us about the human cost. But what about the ribbons? Why were Vivian's ribbons in specific chosen? What do they really represent? Vivian's ribbons are, on the surface, simple to understand. Once tied around a victim's neck, they prevent them from speaking about their work, their lives, or any evidence they might hold. If the ribbon is removed, the wearer is instantly decapitated. But these ribbons are far more than a magical plot device. They're a symbol. Let me explain. By the end of the game, we see Nerissa still wearing her ribbon, even after the curse is broken, and that detail speaks volumes, because the trauma left behind by abuse doesn't vanish when the abuser is gone. The ribbon becomes a symbol of fear, a reminder that for many victims, staying silent feels safer than the risk of speaking out. Even when freedom is technically possible, fear remains. Victims are conditioned to believe that resistance will only lead to something worse: retaliation, violence, death. The ribbons also represent bodily autonomy, or the complete lack of it. They are a literal mark of ownership. Every time these women see themselves, they're reminded of the control Georgie and the Crooked Man had over them. It becomes part of their identity, part of their daily reality. Just like real-world abuse, it reshapes how they see themselves and the world around them. Even after escape, that sense of control lingers. The punishment for breaking the silence, decapitation, is deliberate and chilling, because for many real victims, speaking up does feel like a death sentence. If you try to escape, try to start over, those who once controlled you might come back to punish you. And on a broader level, I believe the ribbons also represent a particular kind of oppression, specifically the commodification of women in society. Women who are treated as products, objects to be bought, sold, and silenced. The ribbon strips them of voice and agency, reducing them to just a body. Crane's obsession with Snow White is a perfect example. Despite her intelligence, her drive, and the respect she's earned, Crane only sees her as something to possess. Lily, glamoured as Snow, embodies that fantasy, a version of Snow who cannot speak, cannot resist, and exists solely to be used. These ribbons, then, are more than enchanted tools. They are the physical embodiment of trauma, fear, control, and societal objectification. And finally, a haunting reminder that even when the chains are gone, the scars remain. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I really couldn't do this without you, so if you feel like going the extra mile, you could also join the channel, but it's not needed, only if you want to. Thank you once again.